Hey everybody, welcome back to Lantern TV Sports Basketball Show with myself, Kevin Lapka, to my right, Jacob Benge, and to my left, as usual, KC Smith of Ohio State Basketball. Got the last game canceled against Nebraska, had some COVID issues over there with Nebraska, but they're back this week, a little road trip, a little road action. They will be going to Minnesota on Thursday, January 27th, and then later on Sunday to Purdue for a big Big Ten matchup, number 6 ranked Purdue against number 16. Ohio State up 3 spots in that AP poll, was previously 19, but after a big win against IUPUI, warrants a 3-spot move in the AP poll. So now Ohio State, we're going to talk about the Minnesota game first. This upcoming Thursday, January 27th, again in Minnesota. Let's start, Casey, with you for this game. Again, Ohio State hasn't played since that IUPUI game. What do you like back in the conference schedule here for Ohio State?
So Kevin, I know it's a long time. Jacob, you too. What were y'all doing January 7th, 2015? Were the Bears or Bengals in the playoffs then? Were you watching a wild card game? Anything of that sort?
No, not in the playoffs that year for me. Probably not. Bengals might have been.
Andy Dalton?
Yeah, Bengals might have been. Yeah, I've kind of, Bengals are winning now. That's what I think matters for those Cincinnati natives.
January 7th, 2015. That was the last time Ohio State went to Williams Arena and came away with a win. D'Angelo Russell, wow. the old lefty for the Buckeyes. He came away with 27 in a 74-72 overtime win. So it wasn't even really that easy of a task for Ohio State. They scored 41 in the first half. They let Minnesota come back, head coached by Richard Pitino back then. And it was a struggle. Going on the Big Ten, it's a struggle. Ohio State, they had struggled with the three-pointers against Wisconsin and Northwestern. They'd only hit 6. They come back with an 11 for 23 performance against IUPUI. They really took advantage there. I think if they're able to get back to sort of their season average, they don't have to shoot extraordinary. Against IUPUI, they shot their second-best three-point percentage, led by Cedric Russell's 4 for 5 from behind the arc. If they just shoot sort of their season average, I think they'll be fine. Minnesota, they're reeling after sort of like a 4-game skid, and then they get off the schneid with a win. Just a couple-point victory over Rutgers. So I think Minnesota, they're really reeling right now. I think if Ohio State can come out shooting the lights out early and set the tone, I think they'll have a really good shot at coming away with their first victory since 2015.
You talk about Minnesota, the first name that comes to my mind is Marcus Carr. He played at Ohio State really well when, I believe in the 2019-2020 season, when Marcus Carr hit a game-tying or go-ahead bucket that kind of really silenced the crowd in the Schottenstein Center. But, Ohio State, like you mentioned, those three-point issues kind of plagued them last time around. A guy like Justin Ahrens needs to refine his stroke a little bit from beyond the arc, because he's somebody who's been deadly from back then. Chris Holtmann says he strikes fear in the opponents and the opposition and whatnot. So I think Ohio State getting back in its swing of things from beyond the arc, but maybe even doing its thing down low with E.J. Liddell, letting him do his thing with those touches down low. I believe he's 12 points away from the 1,000, so maybe that's on his mind going into things. Kevin, you mentioned that game against Nebraska was canceled. I bet he might want that chance to have reached that milestone at home a little bit. But maybe, as Casey mentioned, it's tough to play in Minnesota, so maybe a little bit of reaching a milestone on the away court, especially at a spot like Minnesota, would be a little bit more extra special for Liddell.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you look at this game against Purdue and you talk about this is a 6th-ranked team in Purdue, a very, very good basketball team, one of the best in the country, if not, one of the best in the Big Ten as well. And I think Ohio State has a little something to prove, as little baby would say, right? This is, they've gotten the wins against non-conference opponents, right? You have the win against Duke, but I still feel like there's 12 games left in the season. Ohio State has to show that, they mean it this year, right? Because everybody knows what happened last year, right? And they had big wins last year, but this is going to be a big one going into Mackey Arena. It's a tough place to play, obviously. Big time, Big Ten conference matchup. What do you like in this game? Who specifically do you think needs to stand out in order to get this win?
A couple things for y'all. I looked at a list online the other day. Mackey Arena has the 7th best atmosphere according to whatever publication. It was sort of like a listicle type thing.
Seems pretty subjective to me.
Yeah, I know. Mackey Arena, 7th best atmosphere in college basketball. It's electric there. And John Rothstein, one of my favorite basketball reporters, death, taxes, and Matt Painter. That's what he tweets after every Purdue win. I live and die by that mantra, death, taxes, Matt Painter. Purdue, though, they present a really daunting task for Ohio State, especially going on the road. Like I mentioned, it's tough to win on the road, any conference, especially the Big Ten. But especially against Purdue, they're scoring 84 points a game, and they are first in the country in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted offensive efficiency. And they come at you all sorts of ways. They have a two-headed monster at the top with Jaden Ivey and Sasha Stefanovic. They're shooting 42.4 and 41.6% respectively from beyond the three-point line. And then even down low, they have a two-headed monster with Zach Edey and Travion Williams. And the point I want to highlight there, their ability to do the dirty work on the offensive glass. Ohio State has struggled with surrendering second chance points to opponents. And Zach Edey, he has 55 offensive rebounds, and Williams has 54. That's going to be a real issue for Ohio State to put a body on both of them. And don't forget, Travion Williams comes off the bench. He's only started 4 games this year, and he's one of the better players down low, down in the trenches, if you will, for the Big Ten. The most offensive rebounds for Ohio State is E.J. Liddell with 36. So, mind you, these two guys, they each have over 50 each, and only Ohio State's leader on the offensive glass is E.J. Liddell with 36. Just hard to wrap your brain around, but Ohio State, they're going to really have to be honing and firing on all cylinders if they want to come away with a win this Sunday.
Yeah, I think the Buckeyes, I mean, the last couple of Big Ten games have come in lost form, so they want to get back in the win column. But as you mentioned, you talk about Purdue, the name I think of is Jaden Ivey. He's another guy who's hit a bucket in the last few seconds of regulation against Ohio State, and just, you know, I mean, whether it's him or Marcus Carr, Purdue, Minnesota, it's 2 big games for Ohio State to get back from their layoff here as their game against Nebraska was canceled, as we mentioned. But 2 teams on the road that, as you mentioned, they're hard arenas to play in. Really big atmospheres, and for Ohio State, just to maybe pick up some of that momentum that it was looking for and had honestly really held after that IUPUI game last week.
Yeah, for sure. Minnesota, they got the raised court. The guys on the bench, they're sitting down there at eye level with the court. Maybe something to do. There's something in the water up there. I don't know. But definitely a tough place to play. They'll have their hands full these next 2 games.
And I think they were lucky enough to have a game like they had against IUPUI where they can kind of test their bench a little bit, right? Get some guys some experience. We've seen Eugene Brown now, the third jump out of the scene. Our guy Jack Emerson writing a story about that for Lantern. You can find on the website. Cedric Russell, right? How much time is he going to get off the bench? And consistently throughout the whole year, we've talked about this team kind of being defined by the bench, production that they've gotten, right? Because we know that they have a talented starting lineup, but when you see a lot of the games that they've won, a lot of the good teams that they've beaten, it's because they've gotten pretty solid production from one of those guys off the bench. It kind of has been in waves. Like Cedric Russell early on in the season, everyone's like, well, this guy can really shoot it. He's going to get more time. And now Eugene Brown is a guy who's going to come in there, play really, really good defense, and just be a facilitator. So who do you like to kind of come off the bench, whether it be one guy, whether it be multiple guys, and how important do you think their role is in order to get a win against Minnesota and then pull off the big upset against Purdue on Sunday?
I think it's the guy you mentioned, Cedric Russell.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, Ohio State's going to have to key in on the 3 against Minnesota and really sort of set the tone. If they're able to do that, they can bring Cedric Russell, maybe a newfound sniper off the bench, who knows. But you mentioned that big game against Duke and now this most recent game against IUPUI where he goes 4 for 5.
Right.
I think he's really starting to find it in his own and almost sort of assume a Justin Orange type role where he's just roaming around the 3-point line, waiting for the catch and shoot opportunities, not really facilitate or necessarily be one of the more primary ball handlers. But I think he's the one to watch, especially coming off the bench. And I think Eugene Brown is certainly a name to watch. He comes off the bench and he gets 6 points against IUPUI. He really does sort of the little things,
Yep.
Just he's able to read IUPUI's defense, the Jaguars' defense, and he goes on a back cut, lay it in, or throw it down. I mean, off a nice feed from Jimmy Sotos. I mean, he really showed sort of his athleticism, which I think has been a highlight point for Eugene Brown's game. I think those 2 guys are maybe people that you could watch, especially against Minnesota this Thursday.
I agree. Cedric Russell's really fun to watch when he's coming off the bench. Another guy coming off the bench for me is Kyle Young. Mm-hmm. I really like a glue guy on a team. He's just somebody down low. You pair him with E.J. Liddell or even Zed Key. It's just really hard for teams to defend on the block or in the paint. You can talk bench, but another guy that personally I'm watching is Malachi Branham. He didn't play as well as he would have liked against IUPUI, but his 2022 calendar year has just been off the charts for Ohio State. I believe he's the team's second leading scorer now. He's somebody who's really, growing incredibly fast. Handling the ball. He's really feeding off Jamari Wheeler a little bit. That's just a great mentor, by the way. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's really experienced and veteran-like. Yeah. So, I mean, he scored against IUPUI. He only scored 7 points on 3 for 7 shooting and 1 for 4 from deep. So he's probably going to be another guy on Ohio State's roster who's going to look to maybe regain some of the form he held before the canceled game and whatnot.
Absolutely. So Ohio State, 2 games coming up, little road trip. Only 12 games left in the season. So we'll probably have a few more of these basketball preview shows for you guys before we head into tournament time. But that basketball season's going quick. Again, Minnesota on Thursday, January 27th, and then Purdue Sunday, January 30th. But that'll do it for myself, Kevin, Casey, and Jacob. Hopefully, Buckeyes can away a few wins, and we'll see you guys next week talking about Lantern TV Sports Basketball Show. Take care, guys.